Being great at sales is essential to your business and your career, but you and I both know that the stress of selling and dealing with constant rejection can be an emotional drain. My entire brand, No BS Selling, is based on the belief that professional sales is a skill and not a personality, and that to be better at sales takes constant refinement and a dedication to your craft. This show is for salespeople and entrepreneurs who are committed to improving their sales skills and getting better results, and are sick and tired of the BS game that often happens between buyers and sellers. Welcome to the No BS Sales Podcast, and I'm your host, Walker McKay. I'll help you and your sales team make selling easier, feel less cheesy, and be more lucrative. It's time to change the rules and level the playing field between you and the people you sell to. You're already good, let's be better. Welcome to the No BS Sales Podcast, and I'm your host, Walker McKay. Been talking to a lot of business owners in the last, couple of weeks about the stuff that's changing, the stuff that's changed. And one of the people I reached out to she really inspires me. Her name is Merit Kahn, and Merit and I have been friends for a long time, and she runs her own consulting group called Merit-Based Sales? Merit-Based Business. Merit-Based Business, for goodness sake. Anyway, she's a consultant. She does sales consulting and other things. And anyway, she really inspired me with some stuff she's doing right now and the message she's sharing with people. And so I knew the No BS sales team had to hear it. You all may remember Merit because she was on our on a show probably about 2 months ago, and there was so much there. Need to have her back on. I thought this would be a great time. So, hey, Merit, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Walker. Happy to be back.
Thank you. I butchered what it is that you do. Do you mind taking 30 seconds and tell us what it is that you do and who you do it for?
Well, you know what? 2 weeks ago, I would have said it a little differently. So
no kidding.
While we're in the COVID crisis, I'll say it this way. Lately, I've been working more with companies and entrepreneurs that kind of had it all figured out and dialed in a couple weeks ago. And then all of a sudden the game has changed and they're recognizing that their sales messaging and their processes need to adjust for the current times when they're doing more virtual work. They're also really frustrated, like not knowing, is it appropriate to sell and should I be messaging out there? Does this hurt my brand? So I've been really working with people more to tweak their messaging, the mechanics of how they're selling, the actions and the motion that they take, as well as just kind of infusing their minds with what's possible now and how to overcome this and how to stay open for business.
It's a great message. I know that I tell people that almost everybody in the world right now is some version, some mix of frightened and bored. And it's easy to get sucked into the negative and this is doomsday, the end of the world. And if it is, we have nothing to worry about. I think we have more to worry about if it's not the end of the world, right? What are you going to do on the other side of this?
Right.
Merit, you did a webinar yesterday. Anyway, Merit's famous if y'all don't know that or not, but she did a webinar yesterday, had 700 people from 51 countries on her webinar. And I've got 5-star reviews. And her question that she talked about or that she answered was, what were you doing 2 weeks ago? And how does that need to shift now? So Merit, can you kind of hit some highlights for that for us? Because I know we're all thinking the same thing.
Yeah, so I basically broke it down into the 3 categories, right? So there's things that need to shift about your mindset, the mechanics of selling, and the motion that you take. So I'll give you an example. We'll start with mechanics. 2 weeks ago, like I said, I might have introduced myself differently to start this podcast. I might have said, I work with entrepreneurs and business owners. They're good at what they do, but they're frustrated. People beating them up for lowered pricing and, are those any issues for you? Well, if I said that today, you would think I have rocks in my head.
Tone deaf.
Completely out of touch with what's going on. So I tweaked my message. And that was my coaching to them yesterday on this webinar was take a look at your marketing messages and your sales messages, things like your elevator pitch, things like simple things like what's your email signature? What do you need to change on your LinkedIn profile, your header? What do you need to change? So think of those marketing pieces and how you're showing up with your sales messaging, what needs to change so that you're speaking to the current reality? Because the truth is, we could be in this place for the next 2 years.
Absolutely.
With people in the headspace that they're in now. So You first need to look at the mechanics of selling. The other tip that I gave them was to use the phrase, "Are you open to?" So one of the challenges and one of the things that people said on that call was, I'm really not even sure how to bring up a sales conversation. It feels awkward. I feel like, I don't want to be salesy in this time of need and all of that. And I'm like, it's okay. Some people are still doing business, right?
Yeah, right.
And
yes.
we want to do that. So you just simply say, hey, like 2 weeks ago, I might have said, let's schedule a time when we can talk about your business challenges. Well, I'm not going to say that today, but I am going to say, are you open to having a conversation about something that we can actually control in this crazy time? Yeah. Are you open to having a conversation about what we could do to keep you and your sales going? And that, nobody doesn't want to be open. Yeah. So because you got to get your prospects and clients in a mindset where they can hear the help that you can provide. And if we don't say that, then it comes across as a little bit abrupt right now.
I think you're right. I would also, one of the things I've been talking to people about even more than usual is be human.
Yes.
Be empathetic, right? Show that you're not just, it's the people that are calling that are, we must adjust, we must adapt, we must change our tone, our way that we're going into things, what we're thinking about it. It's not, hey, I can make you a great deal in this terrible time. That's shitty, right? That's just not even human. You blow people up that way because everybody's suffering somehow. And we have to be more empathetic to that and realize that.
Exactly. But I think where some salespeople are getting it wrong, at least this was the feeling that I got from the comments that were happening on this webinar and a couple of other conversations that I've had, is that people are getting confused with empathy and action. Like
yes.
I think you can still demonstrate empathy and be assertive, not aggressive, but assertive with your appropriate offers. And that's another distinction that I've been making in the last couple of weeks, that, there are things that I do in my business that were 100% appropriate 3 weeks ago and completely irrelevant right now.
Yep.
Like I have a whole online course about how to onboard your sales team and get them up and running very quickly. Well, that's irrelevant right now.
Yeah. Yes.
That's not an offer that the marketplace would deem appropriate. So I've stopped talking about it. And I hid that page on my site. Like there's no need for it.
Correct.
But I replaced it with an appropriate offer for what people are dealing with in the real world right now. And I can be empathetic with what you're going through and still assertive that this offer is 100% appropriate. You can take me up on it or you can decline it. That's up to you.
Right.
Yes. I am going to make it. It's my job to make the offer.
100%. And I think you just defined well. I was going to ask you to give me, why don't you do this? Give me the definition, your definition, or the difference between assertive and aggressive.
Okay. Aggressive is going to be, it's my way or the highway. My idea is the best idea. I'm gonna jump down your throat with it. Right.
I'm gonna pound you until you say yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Assertive is I'm comfortable. I'm confident in my approach, and I'm gonna make an appropriate invitation for you to hear it.
Yes.
I think assertive is it's not like levels of aggression. Assertive and aggression are not on the same playing field.
Correct.
Aggression is a different trajectory. So you can't be assertive too much that it would be aggressive, because assertive implies a level of empathy and ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes.
Interesting.
Whereas aggressive is completely disregarding the other person.
See, I broke it down, again, not as smart as you. I thought of assertive as something that you are inside. Assertive is confidence, right? And you know that you're there and being appropriate. And aggressive is on your outside. Aggressive is what you do to other people.
Yeah, that's simpler. That's better. Go with that one. That's
good.
A way simpler way to think about it. Yeah, I like that. I like that.
So what kind of feedback did you get yesterday? What are people telling you? Are they scared? Is that what you're hearing, and that they're panicked, or what?
Actually, no, I did a survey. I asked questions about how they're feeling, how many of you are, what are the actions you've taken? Well, majority of people, when given the choice between, I haven't taken any action, I've enjoyed some Netflix specials.
Yeah, right.
On the other side of the spectrum, I've been leading conversations and deliberately changing my marketing message and revamping appropriate offers. And most people, again, my audience is going to be, the topic of the conversation was selling in spite of COVID-19. So if you're going to be in that conversation, you're already ahead of that curve, right?
Right.
The people watching Netflix wouldn't have signed up for that webinar, but the majority of people that answered that survey did respond with, there were some that said, I'm waiting to see how things shake out before I jump into the game. Yep. But the majority, 75% of the respondents, and I'm
give or take, right?
I'm, not exaggerating. I'm taking the average.
There you go.
They said, yeah, we're actively looking to revamp our messaging and our approach and do everything we can to stay open for business.
Love that. So among the things that I really respect the hell out of you about is you are somebody who is not afraid to make changes, right? And not afraid to put yourself out there. And I mean, I've known you, Merit, for about 20 years, I think. And it's one of the first things that I saw. I mean, you're very dynamic. And anyway, you've been through a whole bunch of shit, but you have not been stopped by it. You seem to kind of come out like the phoenix rising every single time. And so one of the things I wanted to have you talk about with the No BS sales team is to celebrate, or in anticipation of your 50th birthday, you went and created your own one-woman comedy show, which is not, you are not, that's not something that I would have picked. I mean, you're charming and funny and all, but I never would have picked one-woman comedy show. There were a bunch of lessons I think you must have gotten from that. Well, what is something that maybe you learned about your own life while you were writing that, and what in the world drove you to do that?
Ooh, okay, let's unpack.
That was a lot. I'm sorry. I kind of vomited all over you. I apologize.
No, it's perfect. So I'd been studying stand-up comedy since 2014. I've performed several times, and it's just a blast. And the idea was to do something like really crazy to celebrate my 50th birthday. And it started out as, I'm going to do 50 minutes of original stand-up comedy for my 50th birthday, and it's just going to be a performance for my friends. And then my father got involved, and he's a director of community theater and things. And he's like, I see sets and costumes and, and the next thing I know, it's a one-woman show. So, but the theme of the whole show actually didn't emerge until I began writing. And I looked at each of my 5 decades. I looked at who was important to me in that decade. What were the lessons I learned? What made me laugh? What were the standout experiences? And I just started journaling. And what I discovered was there were these, there's these themes through my life. Like, I haven't changed much since I was 10 years old. I love being in front of people. I like inspiring people to see more possibilities for themselves and their lives. I'm very social and outgoing. I like to laugh. And I've found ways to look at all the things that were frustrating and challenging in my life. But because I knew I wanted this to be a comedy show, I applied the lens of comedy to all the experiences throughout my life. And I just found the humor in all the down parts of life. Mm-hmm. And really what came out of that was the show, the theme was about, it was a journey back to who I've always been. And I think that was a message that really resonated with the audience. We sold out the theater, 175 seats, and
that's awesome.
It was going to be a one night only experience, but I had so much fun. I'm like, oh, I got to do this again. But now I had a show date booked in May, and now we're all in quarantine. So I did videotape the whole show. And I decided that I think what we all need right now is a little bit more comedy.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I found a way. The show got picked up by C-Suite Network. They have TV shows on their network. It's,
Yeah.
it's not something you would go to your TV remote with.
Yet, although you may be the one that breaks them through and takes them to the top.
Who knows?
Yeah.
So maybe somebody listening can get it on Netflix. That would be cool, or Amazon Prime, or whatever. But yeah, I'm going to make it available. It's deeply personal, very revealing, a little bit raunchy, and hilarious, but it's inspiring. It'll hopefully, I wrote it so people will see something for themselves and laugh throughout the journey of my life, but be able to see their own life through my story. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Are you a Brene Brown person?
Love her, absolutely.
Because a lot of what it sounds like you're doing was being willing to be vulnerable, right? And being willing to laugh at the dark times. And I think that is something that not only is it a gift, it's a skill. And I think it's something that we all, let me stop. That is a skill. That is something that we all must develop. And people tell me, gosh, you've got a real gift for standing in front of a crowd. I'm like, no, I've been working my ass off at it for 25 years, right? It's not a gift. It's something I've had to work on. And so it's like you became an overnight success after 25 years of busting your ass for an overnight success, right? So, I'm going to be more specific about the comedy for a second and less about your life. How were you able to, what did it take for you to look at the down points through a comedic lens? What does that mean?
Well, I did take a class. I took a stand-up comedy workshop. The instructor name was Christina Hall, so we'll give a little shout out. It's standuptheworkshop.com.
Yep.
But it changed my life. What I learned in that class was that it was okay to, so you don't sit down and write a joke. Right. You write about your experiences that were personal to you. And in that discovery, I learned to ask myself a few questions about those experiences. So for example, I had a very difficult marriage. I was married to a legitimate diagnosed narcissist. Ugh. And so I wrote about that. And I would take situations that were so frustrating to me that I was just gripping onto and furious about. And I would start writing, and then I would write things like, okay, well, what's embarrassing about this? A quick example. So there was, I had to take my ex back to court in contempt, yada, yada. And I was writing about how frustrated I was that after a surprisingly smooth and fairly quick, easy, and not over the top expensive divorce, now I was back in court just to enforce the rules that we already put into play. Like, that's ridiculous. So I'm writing, what's funny about this? Like, what am I observing about myself? And I wrote, why did I think he was going to comply with a divorce agreement when we didn't comply with anything else? Like, that's on me. Like, what was how ridiculous of a thought was that? And then all of a sudden I wrote, it just came out of the paper and it said, I have an open divorce. It's like an open marriage. We argue with each other and only sleep with other people. And, I love that joke and it always gets a laugh. But I didn't sit down and write, how is my divorce like an open marriage? Like, right. Yeah. It develops. And so I think that's true with anything. You start with what is frustrating, and you can either take that frustrating experience and sit on the couch with a therapist. And I'm an advocate of that too. I think therapy is amazing. And I certainly have been on my share of couches for a therapy reason. And
I was going to say.
For other more fun reasons too. I like to be on the couch.
Your way up, right?
But processing what is deeply personal or traumatic or frightening, through comedy was the best, most energizing experience ever. I mean, in my show, you learn about my gay father, my narcissistic husband, my divorce, my health dramas, some big stuff, but it's all easy to take in because I tell those stories in ways that you can laugh about it.
Yeah. And people can see themselves, and maybe the message is that it's going to be okay, right?
Exactly.
I don't know that we can give too much of that kind of message in today's world or ever. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah, of course.
So what was, when did it really click for you? How long did it take you? Was it the class that made it click for you? And at what point in the class did you say, holy shit, this is like the whole shell coming off?
I'll tell you what it was exactly, because I remember the moment. Mm-hmm. My coach had said to me, so the class was set up like you do some writing and then you do a performance. You do your very first stand-up set. You do 7 minutes on your own of original material that's all about your personal life. And I had said something that I never shared with people ever was about my father being gay.
Yeah.
And, my feeling was just none of your damn business.
Nobody's damn business, right.
Right. Now, when he came out, it was the 80s. It's not like it is today, where it's kind of in fashion to have a gay.
Right, it's cool, right?
You gotta have a gay friend. You gotta, someone in your family is gay. Like, that's awesome. Yeah. So it wasn't like that back then. And so I grew up kind of, shame is not the right word. It was just, it was difficult to talk about. I wasn't ready to be vulnerable. So I wrote jokes, and I remember being in my car, driving to my father's house because I needed to get his permission because I had written these jokes about growing up with a gay dad. And I was on the phone with my comedy coach and I said, I really don't understand why I need to reveal this about myself. Like, I was adamant. I'm like, I will talk about something else. I am not saying this out loud. And I got to my dad's house and I'm crying and I'm like, I have to do this comedy show in 2 days and I don't know. And this
is 2 days to go before the whole damn show.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And he goes, Merit, this is your story. If it's helpful for you to share your perspective of growing up with a gay dad, go for it. What's going to happen to me? I'm 70 years old. Like, wow. Go for it.
Wow.
And he sat in the front row and I told some great jokes about growing up with a gay dad.
That is freaking
And I immediately felt like this huge weight lifted off my shoulders. And that's when I knew anything that I am embarrassed or hurt or frustrated or shameful even about, the moment I get it out there in a funny way, it disappears any of those negative feelings for me. And more importantly, it makes everybody else, it makes it easy for someone to be around that information, right? If I can laugh at those things, then you can too. I made it okay for you to be okay with it. Then it disappeared any anxiety I had.
It is, what you just said it is so brilliant and so important. And I want people to hear that, right? It's the stuff we're most insecure about, the stuff that makes us the most bound up, the stuff that makes us the most anxious. And sometimes we want to share that stuff with somebody, but we bring it as we bring it as a yuck, and it's always me and blah, 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 and terrible and crying and weeping. And I go back, I'm sorry, I'm going to switch this around a little bit. I had a client that tells a story about, tells a story of his life in a way that was a complete failure. And then he turned around and told it in the way that was a complete success. Same story, same life, just turned it around. And it's amazing how different the two stories are, and depends on the story you tell yourself, right? What is the story you tell about your own life? And what you've done is an even step higher than that, which is taking the bruised stuff, the stuff that maybe you've been hiding, and you make that out there too, which makes you more vulnerable, which quite frankly makes you more powerful, and it makes people drawn to you. And I tell you, I'm a crew, right? I'm on there, I'm drawn because you're a badass, and I love what you do. I'm going to ask you a question that we did not set up for today, so I'm going to catch you off guard perhaps. But maybe you can share this. What's the kindest thing anybody's ever done for you?
Woo. What's the kindest thing anybody has ever done for me?
Business or personal, I don't care.
All right. I'm sure there are so many examples I could give you. What popped into my mind first was a gift that I was given once, like a physical gift. It's probably not the kindest thing someone's ever done, but it just popped in my head, so I'll share the story. Anyway, this was a man I was dating since after my divorce, and he had known that one of the most important people in my life was my grandmother, my dad's mom. And she had a collection of thimbles. And after she passed, I was the recipient of the thimble collection. And I keep it in a very special place where I look at it every day. And I think of her because she's been gone for more than 7 times longer than I've ever even knew her. I do talk about her in my show, but she still is a driving force of good in my life. And for my birthday, this gentleman gave me an antique thimble.
Wow.
And he said, that, it was just, what I got from that was, here's a person who really got me, like really listened.
Got it. Get to the core.
Really got into my world and took the time to go out and find something that would be extremely meaningful to me. And I just thought that was one of the more thoughtful
really great
gestures. Like,
so you ditched him.
Yeah, I'm not proud of that part of the story. He's still a great guy. We're friends. Just 2 different life phases, but
I know I'm just picking on you. So Merit, how would you've got people get in touch with you, and you've got a link to see your comedy show. Tell about how people can find out more about you.
Okay, thank you for that. So the best way to find me is my website, which is meritbasedbusiness.com. It's a mouthful, MERIT, just like a certificate of. That site will get you to some free resources that I had to get us through the COVID experience. But then there's a super secret web link.
Just for our special listeners today.
Yes. So let's see, I put it in 2 places. So you can find it at meritbasedbusiness.com/comedy show.
We'll put it in the show notes, Merit, so it'll be in there too.
That would be great. But that's and the other way to find the comedy show might be easier is C-Suite Network. If you go onto their website, there's a button for TV shows, and you would be looking for a show called The Comedy Suite. The Comedy Suite with Merit Kahn. So that should be launching soon if it's not up there when you immediately go to it. But it's definitely worth the watch. It's just, I hope people enjoy it. I hope people laugh. We need to laugh a little bit. I hope it inspires people to be a little bit more vulnerable with the down parts of their life, and that's what I can do.
I freaking love it. Merit, thank you so much for being on the show. You are a bright light and somebody I like being around. And I know the No BS sales team, we got huge, wonderful reviews, a whole bunch of 5 stars last time. And so thank you for coming back on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks, Walker.
You're welcome. All right, No BS sales team, listen to this thing. Share it with people who need to hear this message. Share it with people that need some inspiration. Also, as always, if you will rate and review the podcast, that really helps the search. We're getting a whole bunch of good ratings, a couple of bad ones, but fuck those people. And also, I've got a newsletter that goes out twice a week, and it's got things like the reading list I have, and it's got things like the books I'm reading. It's got things like the link to the podcast and some videos I've done. And also, I write more of a personal one that goes out on Tuesdays and Wednesdays about things that are going on in the world. So, and how they relate to sales in our world. So to get on that newsletter list, you text the letters NOBS, no spaces, no BS, no spaces, right? To the number 66866. NOBS to the number 66866. WS sales team, thank you so much for listening. Merit, thank you. You're a superstar, and I'm honored to have you on the show.
Thanks, Walker.
You're very welcome.
Stay safe. Stay healthy.